What adventure is ahead for Ahsoka Tano? Let's unpack it. I have been struggling with how to present this information, so I'm just going to jump in and see what happens. This show on Disney Plus, Ahsoka, is based on a character named Ahsoka Tano, who, if you've watched the animated series that Disney Plus has put out, or that have been put out over the years, the Clone Wars and then later Star Wars Rebels, you'll know that Ahsoka Tano was Anakin Skywalker's Padawan. She was training with Anakin during the Clone Wars to be a Jedi. There's more to that, and I'm going to unpack a little bit more of Ahsoka Tano in just a minute. I'm going to go ahead and put the spoiler warning here. If you haven't seen these episodes or Rebels or Clone Wars, I'm going to spoil it all because I'm going to tell you what you need to know from Clone Wars and Rebels for this to make the most sense. Now, having said that, Dave Filoni has done a pretty good job in setting up the relationship of the characters in this series, Ahsoka, so that you don't really need to see those episodes or those series to know who's important to who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. But there is information to be had about how good the good guys are and why we want to find the missing good guy, and how bad the bad guy is and how much we don't want him to be found. Anyway, spoiler warning, I will be using clips, which is covered under the fair use provision of the Copyright Act of 1976. Let's dig in. So I'm going to cover, real quick, I'm going to cover who the characters are that we need to know who they are. So our main character is Ahsoka Tano. We met her when she was young and just assigned to Anakin Skywalker, and we did in the animated series Clone Wars see her grow up, and she got accused of a crime and the Jedi Order threw her out. And then when her innocence was proved, they let her back in. But because they had turned on her, she was disillusioned with the Jedi Order and walked away. So she was never more than a Padawan. She never became a knight. She never passed the trials, I should say. In Rebels, then, Ahsoka was working to help the rebellion against the Empire. She had a code name which was Fulcrum, and she would get information to people, get supplies to people, and she worked between all the little cells that had not yet coalesced into the rebellion. And that's when she met the crew of a ship called the Ghost. And on the Ghost was a man by the name of Kanan Jarrus. And Kanan Jarrus was a Padawan at the time of Order 66. And he survived because his master sacrificed herself so that he could get away. And he did get away. So he is a mostly trained Jedi. The captain of the Ghost is Hera Syndulla. She is in the show Ahsoka. She's General Syndulla. But on Rebels, she fell in love with the Jedi, Kanan, and the two of them had a son named Jason, who I believe shows up in this series as well. From that series, Kanan didn't make it. He ended up sacrificing himself so that the rest of the crew could survive. And the rest of the crew being Sabine Wren, who was also in this series, and Sabine is a Mandalorian, working as a mercenary signed on to this crew. Sabine Wren is pretty big in the Star Wars universe because she's the one that defeated Darth Maul to reclaim the dark saber and unify Mandalore. But she didn't want it, so she handed the blade over to somebody else to rule and went back to the Ghost. That's a whole nother story. Zeb, I forget Zeb's species name, but we saw Zeb in an episode of The Mandalorian. So hopefully we'll see him turn up here. I'm not sure how expensive it is to bring Zeb to live action. I can't imagine it's cheap. So we did see him in live action in The Mandalorian, so hopefully he'll show up, but we haven't seen him credited yet. Ezra Bridger. So Ezra is a young, at the beginning of Star Wars Rebels, he was a young boy signed on to fight with the crew of the Ghost and help with the rebellion. He ended up being force sensitive and began training under Kanan. And when last we saw him, he was detaining Grand Admiral Thrawn on a Star Destroyer, while the Purrgil took Ezra, Thrawn, and the Star Destroyer and jumped through hyperspace to somewhere. That was literally the last time any of them were seen. So, the Purrgil are space whales. Seriously. And they travel through hyperspace naturally. Grand Admiral Thrawn, who appeared in Rebels and is the person the bad guys in Ahsoka are looking for. So the Grand Admiral reported directly to the Emperor. Right? So there was the Emperor, the Supreme Commander, and Grand Admirals. Grand Admiral Thrawn got along with Darth Vader, respected his commitment to the Empire and loyalty to the Emperor. And Darth Vader recognized the intelligence and strategic acumen of Grand Admiral Thrawn. So towards the end, well, all right. So in the Clone Wars, when we saw Ahsoka training with Anakin, for those of you that may not know, Anakin Skywalker actually became Darth Vader. That's who Darth Vader is. But before he went bad, he was training Ahsoka. And he trained Ahsoka so well that when the Order 66 was sent out and all the Jedi were purged, the clone troopers turned on the Jedi and killed them all. Ahsoka survived because she was trained by Anakin. He had put her through so many drills and so much training that it just happened. She managed to rescue. The clones did this because of a chip that was inserted that made them never question their orders. Except that Ahsoka managed to remove the chip from Captain Rex. And I hope we're going to see Rex in Ahsoka. He'll be old now, but I like Captain Rex. So Ahsoka survived. She took out an entire Star Destroyer of stormtroopers to do it. But she survived. And she survived the crash of the Star Destroyer. And then she buried all of the clone troopers. And then left her lightsaber behind to be found so that people would think she was dead. And she just walked away. Darth Vader did find her lightsaber. In Rebels, with new lightsabers, I'm skipping a lot, but Ahsoka ended up dueling Darth Vader. And she ended up cutting half of his mask off. And she saw that it was Anakin. So her master had become this evil Sith Lord. Flash forward to what we know of Ahsoka before this series, after all of that. We did see her meet Grogu in live action, played by Rosario Dawson. And she refused to train him. She sent him to Luke to be trained. And I think she's afraid of creating a student that would turn evil, like Anakin did. It would turn to the Sith. There was a nice moment when Ahsoka was standing next to Luke Skywalker, watching Grogu, when she accused Luke of being just like his father. And she meant it in a good way. It was a nice little moment. If you haven't watched The Mandalorian, you should go back and watch The Mandalorian. Okay, so we did see Ahsoka fight Morgan Elsbeth in The Mandalorian. She had a staff of Beskar steel. And it was the first time we heard her ask about Thrawn. When she beat Morgan, she said, "Where's Thrawn?" And that was the end of that episode. We pick up in Ahsoka with Ahsoka's prisoner, Morgan Elsbeth, being transported. And I'm not sure where they thought they were taking her, but a ship with 2 people claiming to be Jedi want to board. And the captain, being overconfident, wants to call their bluff. And I'm not sure how calling their bluff is letting them on board. So he lets them on board. And there's some great imagery that they use to remind us of other things. So with the ramp down and the smoke, like every ramp thing, we do see them descend like Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan at the beginning of Phantom Menace. And, others. And then he identifies themselves as Jedi. They're here to interrogate the prisoner. And he goes to, the Jedi goes to leave, and the captain stops him and says, "I don't know who you think you are. You're overconfident. You're not going anywhere." And with a look, the older of the two looks just slightly, and the younger of the two ignites their lightsaber, and everyone starts to die. And the two of them begin to fight their way to the detention level, where they rescue the prisoner quite easily, who is Morgan Elsbeth. So these two are Baylan Skoll as the man, the older, and his apprentice, apparently, Shin Hati. Now, this is interesting because they're not using red lightsabers denoting them as Sith. They are using orange lightsabers. And the color of lightsabers matters. Sith lightsabers are red because the crystals are bled to be more powerful in the Force, and that's what makes them red. Ahsoka's are white because she got I can't remember whose. I don't know if they were Darth Maul's or Ventress's Sith red crystals, and repurified them, and they became white. That's why Ahsoka's lightsabers are white. But orange is interesting, because the only orange I can place, you can feel free to correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, is Master Poe. So if Baylan Skoll was Master Poe's apprentice, and he's probably roughly the age of Obi-Wan Kenobi, he might know Ahsoka, because Ahsoka and Master Poe were very close during the Clone Wars. Master Poe helped Ahsoka a lot and really believed in her a lot. Master Poe was killed in his fighter craft at Order 66. So that might be a thing, if that's really Master Poe's apprentice. Because also is that Shin Hatiz wears a Padawan braid, which is a Jedi thing. So I think Baylan, after Order 66, however he survived Order 66, is walking a gray line, perhaps. He's a gray Jedi. The life of a mercenary, perhaps. But not evil, not Sith. And he has teamed up with Morgan to get Thrawn back. He's teamed up with Morgan. We don't know if it's so that to get Thrawn back. She wants to get Thrawn back. And when Shin Hati asks her master, why do we want this guy back? And he says, to some people, it will mean renewed war. To others, it'll be a new beginning. And to us, it'll be new power like you've never imagined. Well, that's interesting. Does he need Thrawn for something? Or does Thrawn have something that he needs? Or does he just want to get to the other galaxy? Maybe he just wants out of Dodge. Don't know yet. But anyway, he's helping Morgan Elsbeth, who we find out in the episode is in fact a Night Sister, which is a group of witches that use the Force for magic and usually draw on the dark side. And it's recognizable because it's a toxic green energy that they use. And we see it for a moment. So in this, we have to find the map to Thrawn. Ahsoka finds it. So it's locked. It's a thing like the map to find Luke. It's the same thing. Sabine gets it unlocked, sees it for a moment before the battle droids take it, and Shin is there. And Sabine ignites Ezra's lightsaber. So, hold on. I forgot to cover this. We see that Sabine is living in what was Ezra Bridger's place on the top of this communications tower on Lothal. Lothal is the name of the planet. So she's living there with her lowcats. Cute. She does play a hologram from Ezra. And it's a personal message from him to her, because they were kids together on the Ghost. They grew up together. He looks at her like a sister. So anyway, Shin shows up and Sabine takes the lightsaber out. Now Sabine, being Mandalorian, can fight. She's fought her whole life. But this fight does not go well for Sabine. And she is, in fact, impaled by a lightsaber. And this is the first real problem I have. So, in the Star Wars universe, you only die from lightsaber wounds if the story needs you to die from lightsaber wounds. Qui-Gon Jinn had to die so that he didn't train Anakin Skywalker, so that Anakin Skywalker would turn into Darth Vader and would have a story, right? If Qui-Gon Jinn trains Anakin, he cares enough to be the father figure Anakin needed, and Anakin would have been okay. So Qui-Gon is run through with a lightsaber and dies. At the same time, literally the same time that Qui-Gon is run through, Darth Maul is cut in half and he lives. The Grand Inquisitor in the other show, Obi-Wan, was run through and lived. The girl that ran him through gets run through and she lives. Sabine gets run through and, sorry, spoiler, she lives. It's just, lightsabers are supposed to be better than that. Anyway, so Sabine lost the map. Ahsoka's not happy. But she does find out that there's the robots that came to get it. And she goes back, and correctly, there's still one waiting. And she manages to decapitate it and bring the head back to Sabine, who is mechanically inclined and hacks the head to gain the information they need. So we do see a conversation between Hera and Ahsoka, where Hera says you should take her back as your Padawan. And she is sort of the motherly group binder. I think she's the one that holds the group together. And Ahsoka has an attitude, and Hera has a similar conversation with Sabine, who Sabine has an attitude. So we start to see that the problem is that their personalities are butting against each other. And I think it was Hera that said to Ahsoka that, isn't that the way you were with your master? Isn't this your job? We don't know why she decided to train Sabine as a Padawan, but she did. What I'm hoping for this series is that Anakin will consult Ahsoka from beyond. As a Force ghost, he'll appear and guide her. And I'm hoping that the point of this series is the progress of Ahsoka the Grey to Ahsoka the White, to steal from Lord of the Rings. So at the end of Star Wars Rebels, the last time we saw Ahsoka, she had a cloak on with a hood up that was white. It's also the same white cloak she wore to Padme Amidala's funeral. It's a different story. When we recreated that scene in this series, when Sabine is looking at the mural, the painting, and turns and Ahsoka is there, Ahsoka's wearing a gray cloak. And I think that's intentional. I think the arc of Ahsoka in this series is going to be her re-embracing the Jedi way. Not the way the Council was doing it at the time of their fall, but the real Jedi way, like Qui-Gon. Just listen to the living Force and let it guide you. Do what's right. And her training Sabine, they forced me to think about it, and I do kind of like it. Where the Jedi that she walked away from would only take very Force-sensitive children. Yoda, the first time we hear about the Force from Obi-Wan, it is an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us, penetrates us, binds the universe together. And then Yoda adds, luminous beings are we. So the people that can be Jedi are the people that commit to do it. So some people are more naturally gifted at it, and others aren't. So Sabine's one of the ones that isn't. And Huang, the robot that's in this series, explains it to her that she's the worst candidate he's ever seen to become a Jedi. She's so out of touch with the Force. And I think that's Ahsoka's point. The Jedi aren't special. They just train. They just learn. Anybody can do it. Huang, by the way, I forgot to mention him earlier, has been a Jedi droid for 25,000 years. He has helped for 25,000 years every Jedi learner to build a lightsaber. So he was there when Yoda built his. He remembers them all. And it's kind of voiced by David Tennant, by the way. Any Doctor Who fans or Harry Potter fans? It's David Tennant as the robot. So, where are we? So these first 2 episodes sort of set all of the relationships. We did get to go back to Corellia. We did see the shipyards at Corellia, which is in fact where the Millennium Falcon was built and where Han Solo is from. It looks better than when we saw it in Han Solo under the Empire's rule. In the movie Solo, I mean. It looks like the Republic is helping Corellia. Although, obviously, there's Imperial remnants trying to rebuild the Empire. We do meet Chopper, Hera and Chopper. Hera gets on the Ghost. We get to see the Ghost fly into action. And Chopper is her astromech droid with a personality. Chopper could have his own series. And Chopper actually throws the tracking device to get it onto the ship so that they can track them. And I've heard a couple of people say that they're tracking through hyperspace, and you can't do that. They're not tracking through hyperspace. They're tracking them, and they jump through hyperspace, so when they come out of hyperspace, the tracker tells them where they are. It's the same way that Obi-Wan tracked Boba Fett. He threw the tracker and stuck it on the back of Boba Fett's ship that used to be called the Slave One. So we do track them, and we do get there, and they're building a gigantic hyperdrive ring ship to go to the other galaxy and get Thrawn. I have seen episode 3, but I'm going to do a separate video on 3, so I'm not going to talk about what happens once we get there in this video. So 1 and 2 were good, slow, and in places really slow. Like it almost felt like we were artificially extending the run times. But I don't know what it's like to watch it having not known any of these characters. Maybe it was perfect. Let me know if you're watching Ahsoka with no information. Let me know what you thought of these episodes. So I did like these 2 episodes. I can't wait for the story to start to roll. And hopefully that's now. Like, we're not going to waste any time because there aren't that many episodes. I did like the fact that at the end of the first episode, they did dedicate to Ray Stevens, who plays Baylan Skoll. The actor Ray Stevenson passed away after filming was complete. So that was interesting when Morgan said that we're going to have to kill Ahsoka, and Baylan pushed back and said, but there's so few left. Like he doesn't want to just kill the Jedi because there aren't that many left. That leads me closer and to the idea that he's not Sith and he's not working for evil means. He's just a hired gun. And then when the chips are down, I don't think he'll kill Ahsoka. I don't think he's going to kill Ahsoka because the show's called Ahsoka. I'm just thinking out loud. Anyway, so what did you think? What are you thinking? Are you going to stay with the show? I'm in for the run. Now that we've gone through this one was sort of rough to talk about and get through. We'll just, in the next episode, it'll just be about how the episodes are going. Unless there's more information that we need to pull from somewhere else. But that's it. This is Sean's Take. I am Sean. I hope you liked this episode. If you did, give us a thumbs up. Consider subscribing. And let me know what other shows you're watching if you want to hear breakdowns and have a talk about other shows. Let me know what they are. I have Foundation. I'll give you a link to the playlist. That's a really fun show on Apple TV Plus, and it's really rolling at this point. But thanks for being here, and I'll see you next time.